Alright, welcome ladies and gents to my spoiler review of Alien Romulus. So, I watched it yesterday. I did a non-spoiler review yesterday, which I'll leave linked above. Go check it out if you want. If you don't want any spoilers, please do go and check that video out right there. But we're going to just talk full spoilers. We're going to just get into it, discuss it. Might be a bit rambly, it might be overlong, it might not be, really. There's quite a lot to unpack about this film. Some of the stuff I will leave for potentially some explained videos, because there's quite an expansion to the lore here, which I don't want to get into too much in this video. I think we'll stick to the sort of mainstay spoilers. So, it's been about 24 hours, hasn't it, since I've watched it. I still really like it. I've sat on it. I've thought about it, ruminated on it. I still really like this film. Now, it's not going to be for everyone. I think that's fair. It's fair, and I think that makes sense. The overall Alien franchise as a whole has always been quite divisive, even amongst its own fans. So there are some hardcore Alien fans that do genuinely hate Aliens, and they hate it because of what they see James Cameron doing as ruining the life cycle of the xenomorph, and that's again fair. You know, if that's your your stance, I accept that. So I think it is important to note going into this movie that the Alien fans have never been united amongst themselves on what constitutes a good Alien film. Anyway, I also think it's important to recognise that this film almost had an impossible situation. The Alien franchise was in the dirt. You know, we're 7 years now, isn't it? It's been 7 years since the last film, Alien Covenant, which essentially did destroy the franchise, right? It essentially put it to bed. 20th Century Fox were looking to make numerous Alien films. They were loving it. They were like, yeah, we're going to do loads. And that film came out and it was a flop. It did not do very well at all. I think it would have just scraped some level of profit, but by tiny margins. And it certainly wasn't what they wanted. So that film genuinely did kill the franchise. Until Alien Romulus. So Alien Romulus had a difficult uphill battle from the start. Because the studio, albeit ownership by Disney at this point, I can imagine, and I'm sure you can as well, that they did want to play it safe in some aspects. They wanted to play it safe because they didn't want to... They would have seen what Prometheus and Covenant did and go, yeah, okay, well, we can't continue down that path, 100%. And also the franchise has a lot of fans to please. So this movie was in a really precarious situation. But I think what they managed to do as a film to resurrect the franchise, albeit a love letter to the franchise, which it is. It's a love letter to everything in the franchise. I think they did a bang-up job. It's got 81% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb, 64% Metacritic, B+ cinema score. I think they did a really, really good job. And I think this now paves the way. It reinvigorates the franchise and it paves the way for more films. That's my take. And I think this film, as a love letter and as a defibrillator on the franchise to resurrect it, achieved everything it set out to do. I think it was really good. And it does stand on its own as a story. And the expansion to the lore is huge. So, let's get into kind of the plot and some bits and pieces. So, this movie opens up in 2142. Exactly 20 years after the events of Alien, right? Because that was in 2122. So, this was 2142. And it opens up with a deep space probe catching sight of something. Registers something. Mother switches on this probe and it flies off. This probe flies off and it captures a meteorite. Now, this sequence is absolutely stunning. It's all miniatures, albeit with some CGI as well, but I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. The use of miniatures and just getting those old retro, Acorn-esque square box computers on. It looked absolutely amazing. It looked really... If you don't know, an Acorn was a really old computer. Showing my age. And it was great. That sequence was epic. Now, it captures a meteorite. The meteorite then gets taken, this probe flies back off to a space station. And the meteorite is taken from the space station with all these sort of looming hazmat suit wearing scientists. It's cut open and then a body is taken away. We then cut away to the underside of this meteorite, and it is an imprint of the big chap. Now, this is the wreckage of the Nostromo. It captures the big chap. They capture the big chap, which has encased itself in resin. Presumably, it is the resin-like substance that the xenomorphs can secrete. Now, I actually really like that. I do really, really like that. And I think that's really, really smart as an expansion to the lore. This creature is supposedly the perfect organism. That's what it was called in the first ever movie. So if it gets burnt, and that's it, I mean, it obviously doesn't like fire, I understand that. But if it immediately survives, I mean, it's not really the perfect organism then, is it? And I know it's a retcon of potentially some description, but I like it. I think it works a lot. I really, really do like it. Anyway, from there, we cut away. And then we are still the same year. This is important. It is still exactly the same year. Okay? And then we end up on the planet where Jackson's Star Colony is, which is where our main characters are shown. Kaylee Spaney, Rain Carradine, and David Johnson's Andy, who is a malfunctioning robot synthetic. Now, Rain Carradine, her father passed away, and Andy was supposed to look after her, but they sort of look after one another. It's basically a sibling relationship as opposed to a fatherly one, a father-daughter one. She wants off-planet. This planet is grungy, just nasty, dirty, off-world miners. There's numerous diseases that people are contracting. And she wants off the planet. She's done her hours, okay, in servitude to the company. It was 21,000 hours or something like that. That could be a misquote. Don't quote me on that. I've only watched the film once and didn't take notes. It's all from memory. So she goes to the office of Colony Affairs, where there is a company representative, and they deny her. They deny her hours. They deny her, her ticket off-world. And it was a really brutal scene because it goes to show just how everyone on these colonies are slaves. They are actually slaves. They are slaves to the company. At the push of a button, Weyland-Yutani doubled her hours owed. And the explanation is, we need you. That's it, we need you. Sorry. People have died, so we need you instead. And that's brutal. Now, from there, the movie starts to move forwards and they go off-world. But I would have loved them to spend another 10 minutes, 15 minutes on Jackson's Star Colony, just to really depict the harrowing nature of colony life and really hammer home just how disgusting and awful the company truly is. Because although we got some of that, I would have loved to have seen significantly more. And I think it would have added more weight to the film. More emotional weight as well, rather than just world building. However, what I will say is the Jackson Star Colony looked absolutely amazing. It was impeccably done, all live action. There was numerous vehicles driving around, massive pods where people were sleeping, staying. It was it looked like a full-fledged colony. It looked absolutely amazing. There were little callbacks to Hadley's Hope, the bar open neon sign. And these colonies are shake and bake colonies, right? They are a one-size-fits-all. It's a company-mandated colony, so everything goes out exactly the same. It looked exactly like Hadley's Hope, from what we've known of Hadley's Hope, when we didn't see a fully functioning one. And it looked great. It looked really, really, really good. Really, really, really good. Anyway, Rain gets a message to say, come and meet us. Come and meet Tyler, played by Archie Renault. We need you Tyler is Rain's ex, presumably, in this film. And anyway, so she goes, meets a group of people. The crew of the Corbelan. And that's Spike Fern, who plays Bjorn, bit of an arsehole. Eileen Wu, who plays Navarro. And then you got Isabella Merced, who played, let me double check because I've not got that up, Kay. So she meets them and they've got a proposition for her. They need her. They need Andy. Why do they need Andy? Well, they need Andy because in orbit, just pinged in orbit now, okay, is the Renaissance space station. Now, they don't know that. They know it's a Weyland-Yutani ship. They think it's a decommissioned ship that's just floated in and got caught in the gravitational pull. They don't know anything about it. They have no idea. Now, they need Andy because they need to gain access to it because obviously Andy is a Weyland-Yutani synthetic. So he can open doors, he can gain access, he can talk to Mother. Now, they go up and obviously this is the same space station that the big chap was in, the original xenomorph from Alien. And the space station is inert, it's inactive, but it's not because it's been decommissioned. And there's obviously a bit of tension there, a bit of concern. They're like, what's going on? Oh my God. Now, I think it's important to note as well, Rain only took this because she wants to get off world. You know, she just had her tickets off world denied. So she's like, well, I've got nothing to lose now. Why not? So I think that is important to note. Anyway, they get into the Renaissance. The space station's brilliant. There's definitely Alien Isolation sort of inspiration there. A lot of Alien Isolation inspiration. But Alien Isolation did such a good job of replicating and expanding upon the original movie. So it's all flavours of the same meal, basically. It works really, really well. Now, they go there. They're looking to get cryopods because the trip to Vega, I think it was, is 9 years. On yesterday's review, I said 5, but it's 9 years. So they need cryopods. They find the cryopods actually straight away, but the cryopods don't have enough fuel. They need enough fuel to obviously make the trip. So they search, on the ship for more fuel, and they find it in a lab. Now, in this lab is a group of facehuggers. So it's what you've seen in the trailer. Now, these so obviously, shit ensues. It all goes, pretty bad. They get locked in. The Andy, Tyler, and Bjorn get locked in this lab, and they can't get out until, what they think anyway, they don't know, until they update Andy's sort of credentials with the science officer. In one of the rooms that they walked in, there's a broken synthetic, science officer. So obviously this is a mechanism by which to get everyone off the ship rather than only just an away party. So anyway, at that point, they're all on the ship now, the space station. Andy reboots with these new credentials and he's upgraded because Andy was previously a little bit broken. And David Johnson does a really good job of portraying two sort of personalities here. The broken Andy and the upgraded sort of, highly intelligent, super reflexed Andy. And two Spees, really, really good performances. Very, very different performances. And I thought they were great. David Johnson is the standout. He's the best actor in this whole movie. Anyway, obviously the facehuggers get loose. And you've seen some of the trailer. Navarro gets face-hugged. And it's great. Like, it's so tense. So tense. It's absolutely brilliant. Some people have questioned, like, how the facehuggers are there. They show it in the movie, actually. They've been 3D printed. Molecularly 3D printed. There are molecular 3D printers where they basically manufacture facehuggers because they've gone through and, well, they worked backwards with the big chap and replicated all the sort of DNA process from the big chap. Which, if they got a specimen to study, I mean, it makes sense. far-flung in the future with deep space travel that you could do that. That's not a stretch to me, to be honest. Anyway, so they go back through. Navarro's been face-hugged. They're like, shit, what do we do? They wake the science officer up. Who's the science officer? Oh, they wake the science officer up because they're like, well, we need to know what the hell's going on here. Like, what is happening? We need to try and fix this situation. This woman has a facehugger on her face. Anyway, the science officer is a cross between a fully practical effect and a deep fake of Ian Holm. You know, Ash, right? This science officer is called Rook. Now, that visual effect actually isn't that good, right? It's not that good, right? It was a big oof from me when I first saw it. And I said in my review yesterday, you'll either settle into it or you won't. I settled into it and actually it was fine. And it was, like, once I settled into it, it's actually really nice to see Ian Holm again. Obviously, it's not him. You know, it's a facsimile of him. But this has come out in interviews. That was all approved by his estate and his late wife, you know, his widow, sorry. You know, she approved it. And that's fine. You know, they want to do that. That's fine. Sure. Cool. And it was nice to see him. But anyway, Rook does explain, you know, what's gone on. And, yeah, it's not good, obviously. Obviously, it's not good. Explains that could have laid another creature. And they're like, what creature? And then he explains what happened to his ship, the Renaissance space station. And he explains that they'd, you know, captured the specimen, worked on the specimen, it got loose, wreaked havoc until they managed to finally stop it. But they didn't really stop it because one last reflex of this creature is its acid blood. And all the acid blood is what essentially caused the space station to become inert and just float through space. Now, a lot of people have questioned, well, why isn't Weyland-Yutani there? And they reveal this in the movie, is that it takes 6 months for them to get to that space station, to that location. 6 months. So they're going to be a while, right? It's only just happened, basically. It's only just been... it's only just happened, and the space station's only just wandered, floated in. So it makes sense why, you know, there's no one there from the company. There's other questions, I guess, you'd have as to what the company was doing and blah, blah, blah. If you've played Alien Isolation, actually, Weyland-Yutani having a specimen now and not being on LV-426 does make sense, because Alien Isolation showed that the signal was switched off on LV-426. So, anyway, it makes sense. Anyway, we see the big chap, and he's all destroyed. You see his half-human skull hanging out at the top. It looks cool. Now, I will say, would that have been a really good movie? Watching that? Yeah, it would, actually. That would have been epic. But I don't hate what I got either. So anyway, obviously, Navarro's got a chest burster in her. That pops out. We see it in the trailer. I'm going to speed up my review a little bit now. Pops out. It then cocoons itself from chest burster. Cocoons itself on the hull of the ship. And it's sort of theorized, I guess, that it's using the ship for energy a little bit. Because obviously to you know, create mass, it needs energy. And then it sort of pops out this sort of vaginal pod. And I've got to say that word. I know that makes some people cringe. But I have to say that word because it's very Giga-esque. You know, this pod, this cocoon, is very in line with what I would imagine HR Giga would design. And I think it's a really, really smart way of doing it. It's the aesthetics just bang on. Anyway, before it pops out, Bjorn hits it with a cattle prod. And yeah, it's not good. Bjorn then gets spiked and then acid, and results in a pretty gross death. Acid dripping on him. And yeah, not nice at all. However, just important to note, you know, Andy didn't want them to take the for Navarro to go on board, and so it caused a rift between them. The Corbelan gets jettisoned away whilst all of this is happening, because Andy's basically gone psycho because of the credentials. Again, he's become more in line with what Mother wants him to do. And it's those credentials. He's basically become a slave to the company again, whereas previously he wasn't that. He was a fairly independent android. And then basically from there, all hell breaks loose. It's essentially a mission to get out of the space station as quickly as possible, because the space station is about to fall into the rings of the planet and obviously be destroyed. Now, all of that sequence is great. There are, they're traversing one module to the other module because they have to get something which Rook wants, which is actually the black goo pathogen. Now, there's a few nods in this movie which I really, really appreciated, like XX12X blah 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 xenomorph. That's something only fans know that the xenomorph is called, and it's not 100% the title, but that's something only fans know that the xenomorph is called. Right, that's hardcore fan service, which no one else would notice aside from fans, but it doesn't detract from anyone else who doesn't know either. It was great. There's the subtle use of phone booths in this movie, which are the save points in Alien Isolation, and when you see one in the movie, things are about to go down, and it was really quite smartly done. There is a pulse rifle. You've seen pulse rifles in the trailer. I quite like them. I'm going through all the sort of member berry things now. I like the pulse rifles. I think that works. And I like the fact that there are two distinct modules. And I like the fact that there's two modules because when you get to the second module, they have to make their way all the way down to the basement after they grab the pathogen. And there's a hive down there, like a full-blown hive. And some people have questioned, well, why didn't we see the xenomorphs before that? Because there's more. There's quite a lot of xenomorphs, actually. Well, you wouldn't. Why would you see all of the xenomorphs before that? Like, in Hadley's Hope, you never saw the xenomorphs until you got to the hive anyway. They stay in the hive. Now, does that mean that there's a queen? There could have been, actually. There could genuinely have been one. But I liked that because it creates a scenario in which two separate modules of the space station, one's infested by loads of facehuggers, where there's some great sequences with these things jumping around and leaping, trying to catch you and stuff like that. And that was great. Great blend of practical and CG. And then you go to the next module and the threat is xenomorphs. So two modules, two different threats. Quite distinct. And I really liked that. So anyway, the movie culminates in Kay's character being found. She's pregnant, by the way. And Andy, she's wounded, and Andy's like, well, look, if we inject her with this miracle pathogen, it could heal her. And everyone's like, really? And he's like, yeah, worked on the rat, I guess, what we saw. They'd seen some footage of it in the lab. And obviously everyone's like, no, don't do that. Like, no, I don't trust it. Wise, because we know what the pathogen does. Anyway, she does eventually do that. And from there, there's some sequences which are really, really well done. Getting off the ship and the xenomorphs and face-to-face with the xenomorph. There's a cool thing with 0G with acid and our sort of leads floating towards all this acid, trying to get away from it. It's all really smartly done. The reason why there's 0G acid is quite smart, because obviously they're pinned down. They can't escape, but they can't just shoot all the aliens either, because if they do, they're on the bottom level. The acid will just eat away in the hull, and then they'll just be sucked out and they're dead anyway. So if they break the 0G, then it won't corrode anything, because it'll just be floating. So they can kill the xenomorphs, which is quite smart, actually. There's really not that many plot holes in this movie, like at all, when I was thinking about it. And that's, again, it's actually a really well-written film. Whatever you think of Prometheus, I like Prometheus, but Prometheus has a lot of plot holes. Okay, it's entertaining enough for me to still enjoy it, but it does have a lot of plot holes. This movie doesn't have plot holes. Like, I can't think of many plot holes. Like, there's internal logic of why things are happening and why things are working the way that they are. It's quite a smartly written film. Again, too much fan service, though, I think, in certain places. So certain dialogue ripped off directly. Don't like that. I didn't like Andy saying, "Get away from her, you bitch," to a xenomorph. I thought that was kind of lame. But part of my crowd really cheered. So it is what it is. Anyway, this film culminates in the third act. They manage to finally escape to the Corbalon. Rain Carradine puts Kay to sleep in a pod. Shuts down Andy. Goes to get in her pod. And beep, 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 beep. Kay's pod is blaring out. Everyone else is dead, by the way. I missed that part. But I've been going for bloody 25 minutes now talking about this film. Anyway, so what's happening? Well, Kay's given birth. Oh my god. You know, because she's injected herself. Her tummy's huge. And basically all the mutagen went to her baby. Essentially, right? Pretty brutal stuff. And this is where it'll lose some people. I didn't hate it. I thought it was reasonably good. It could have been better if it was something else. But it still managed to create a lot of tension for me. So I enjoyed it in that way. But anyway, what comes at Kay can only be described as a cross between an engineer and a xenomorph. And it is a bit newborn-esque, right, from Alien Resurrection. Some people would argue that the newborn's better. I don't know if I would go that far, to be fair. They're probably about the same. And this is where it comes back to Prometheus a little bit. And this is, I think, part of what I said at the start is that this movie's in an impossible position because it does have to tie those movies into it somehow. I know some people would just go, no, they've got to be done, blah, blah, blah. But then there's equally some people that would think that you're completely wrong. This is the point, is that you've got to try and make a film which somehow works in universe with every film that's there. Because Ridley Scott wouldn't allow this to not tie into his films as well. There's just no way. And it's probably why we didn't have a Queen, because Ridley Scott doesn't like the Queen. So the engineer xenomorph thing obviously has, you know, there's sort of a big standoff with it, and eventually it gets sucked out. Very reminiscent to the newborn. It gets sucked out of a space vacuum, and then they go to sleep, and then they wander off into space. But it's left open that they still have the mutagen, right? They still have the mutagen. So it is left open that it could work as a sequel, but it's a enclosed story as well, which I really appreciated, actually. I really appreciate the fact that it's a standalone story. I'm so sick of films being an advert for another film. Like, it's just an advert for its sequel. No, piss off. So there you go. I love the practical effects. All of the xenomorph suits were amazing. The lighting is amazing. Everything just works really, really well. The score is impeccably well done. It's just, to me, it's just a decent film. Like, it is one of the best films of the year for me. Genuinely. And it resurrects the franchise. And it was so nice to be back in a world that I love so much. And just have that feeling again. It felt true to the world. I don't know, because I've not done it. But if I was to watch Alien, then go watch this, and then watch Aliens, I'm sure it would stand up really well. And I do genuinely think, this film will hold up to the test of time because of the amount of practical effects and miniatures it used. And there's not many films today that release that can say that. So there you go. Good film. I liked it. Spoiler review. There you go. Let me know what you think if you've seen it down below. Did you hate or love the ending? I didn't hate the end. Well, no, I didn't like the ending. Didn't absolutely hate it, and it didn't ruin the film for me. I would genuinely recommend you go watch the film. And the reason why I say that is, again, the Alien fandom as a whole is incredibly divided in and unto itself on every single part of the franchise. So don't listen to people that just hate it, okay? It might be the case that you'll go watch it and hate it. But because the franchise is so divisive in and unto itself, it pays to actually go watch it for yourself. Now, I'm not saying I'm right, okay? It's just my subjective opinion. But I would recommend you go watch it. I think you'd be best served that way. So, there you go. Leave your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up and please do share it. And support me further via my Patreon, which is linked down below. I mean, if you made it, it's half an hour. So, that's probably worth something. So, go check out my Patreon. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye now.